economy will shrink in the course of 2023. And then weren't that different compared to many others when it comes to the inflation, because inflation is just...
But restoring price stability when inflation is high can require measures that are not popular in the short term as we raise interest rates to slow the...
Today is Tuesday, January 24, 2023, and this is what we see in the Swedish market and our interpretation, what we can see happening, and these are all our reflections and our opinions, not to be considered as financial advice. But in Sweden and Scandinavia, the top question of the day is what's happening to our society in Sweden, and when would we enter into NATO? Now, and for Scandinavia, this is of course a focus. You know, Norway's got Jens Stoltenberg, who's the head of NATO. Finland has also applied for a NATO application and looks like they'll go in before us. You have in the Baltics a kind of retrenchment of their diplomacy with Russia and what's going to happen there. So in Latvia and Estonia, and they're sending of munitions into Ukraine and expulsion of diplomatic representatives from their embassies or from their countries, and expulsions. So the story of NATO is a significant story for us here in the Baltics and the Nordics. So what we're seeing is this question for Sweden is about our society, and this is really how they're interlocked, because Sweden has had a tremendous amount of migration or acceptance of immigrants since World War II, and in particular over the last 10 years of people coming from different regions. And we had when you had the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Iron Curtain, and then you had countries like Croatia, Herzegovina, and then Serbia, and you had the civil wars down there. We took in a lot of refugees, and we had a brief adjustment period, and we had a lot of things happening. But then there was an adjustment, and we had Sweden. And now what we've had is this destruction of society in the Middle East, which was caused by a lot of wars and other things. And we've taken in a lot of people from these regions, and we've seen a shift in Swedish society. One of the projects that our government is working on is the migration integration, and that's what it's called. So it's immigration and integration. And we haven't really seen an integration of the people that we've accepted over the last 10 years into our society. And that's for a number of reasons. It's very difficult to get a job in Sweden without having a connection to somebody who has a job. You have this kind of backdoor network where somebody has to recommend you. And so that makes it difficult for many people to get jobs, despite their competency, despite their having a strong competence. So this has created an issue. And so you see a little bit of a splintering and a kind of like isolation of into their own economies, and they create shadow economies. So you've also had a increase in the drug trade. Now that's an area where you've had a kind of inflation-proof sector is the drug trade. The price of cocaine has actually gone down over a 40-year period versus the cost of goods and other things. So what's happened is you've had more drugs being spread, and the fight against drugs increasing what they're spending on it. The price of drugs has stayed relatively the same. And so while you had a large group of people coming into Sweden, they haven't had a job source other than what's illegal. So you've had an increase in the gangs and criminality and dealing of drugs. And so this has led to a creation of violence, because the escalation of the violence is really for the gang leaders and the drug dealers is to compete against each other. They're not customers. They occasionally are shooting the police, but not so much. What you have is more they're killing each other to secure their drug trade. And that's what we've seen here in Sweden since the beginning of the year. We've had a rash of shootings. We've had a rash of explosions where apartments or buildings or cars are being blown up, whether it's in front of a restaurant or in an apartment building to try to get somebody. We even had over the weekend a person who shot with an AK-47 through the apartment door of somebody. And these two gangs that are battling over territory are being controlled by people from Turkey and people who are living in Greece. Whether or not they're ethnically Greek or ethnically Turkish is not the importance here. What it is these gang members are living in these places, and they may even be Kurds. They may even be, from a different region. That's not important. What's important is it's gangland, territorial fight over territory in Sweden being controlled from another country. And the territory they're looking to control is up north in a place called Sundsvall. And these people are fighting for this territory. And so we're losing our society here in Sweden. And one of the campaigns that the current election or government had was that they were going to increase the amount of time you serve in prison for breaking the law, and they were going to hire in more police officers to help them catch these criminals. What they've done so far is they've committed to having longer sentences, and then what they've done is they have not hired more police officers. They've loaned in police officers from other parts of Europe. So this will be part of a formulation of a study group to understand and assess how many police officers they need to hire in order to complete their task. So that's happening, and we've also put body cameras onto police officers, so they'll be filming all the time, and then they have the ability to stop you and search you, and the auto searches and so forth. So this is how they're interlocked. And then why this is also more interlocked with Sweden and NATO is that as Swedes see their society being turned over because they haven't been doing the integration well with the immigrant group that they've accepted, you have a rebellion from those who are quote unquote Swedish, who want to say, we've had enough of this and it's your fault. So they point the finger at a group and they say, hey, it's your fault. And so we had this individual who was burning the Koran in front of the Turkish embassy. And now Turkey is an Islamic country. So they took a lot of offense to this. And as they are important to the acceptance into NATO of Sweden, they have said that this is going to delay the Swedish acceptance into NATO. Finland, of course, doesn't have this problem and hasn't done this, and they are accepted into NATO. Or will be faster accepted. They're not accepted yet. So Sweden is struggling with when it will get into NATO, and a lot of this has to do with its integration. And so we'll see what happens going forward for Sweden. And what's also happening in Sweden is that we're dealing with the high cost of electricity, we're dealing with the high cost of food, we're dealing with the high cost of other goods. So our cost of living has gone up. And we have a government that has said it's going to try to make things better. They haven't made it cheaper on the gasoline. They have not made it cheaper on the electricity, nor have they actually gotten the money back to the Swedes on this electricity package where you're supposed to get money back. They haven't gotten the money back because they're worried about inflation, and they feel that any money going back to the Swedish citizen, where they've had to take from their savings to pay for their electricity, that this money would instead go to fueling inflation. And it's an odd way of thinking, but this is Keynesian economics, so welcome to it. But this is a separation of reality from theory. So while you've seen, if you look over a 2-year period, charts have all gone down. Everybody's talking about how the markets have gone up from the beginning of the year. It's only the 24th day of the year. We haven't had a good market. We've had a good period within the market, and we haven't had a good 2-year period in the market. We've had a decline. And even from last year, it was a decline. Last year was a bad year in the market. So what you have to do is look at the market from a trading principle. You have to figure out how your trading strategy would work. And for that, you need to talk to your advisor, and you need to come up with your own strategies, whether you're using stochastics or candlesticking, whether you're using Fibonacci's, because right fundamentals don't work for being involved in the market. The fundamentals are not good. The tech sector has had massive layoffs. They are showing signs of overexposure and overvaluation and not attractive sectors within the market. Yet from the beginning of the year, despite the layoffs, they look like a strong sector that you'd want to be involved in. And but based on the fundamentals, they are not good sectors to be involved in. And this is key to what's happening in the market. So if you want to trade, you can make money, and there's and you don't have to always be long. You can be short to make money in the market. It's not illegal to be short. And if you want to trade options, you could trade options instead of the equities. But again, you should talk to your advisor. And what I'm drawing at is the same correlation you see in the market based on the fundamentals and the trading is the same correlation you see with, excuse me, with governments and their ESG policies. They say they want to reduce, and they say they want to reduce carbon, and they say that they want to eliminate the carbon, and they want to be carbon neutral, and they give you different dates. Right now it's 2045. And you heard goals before where it was 2030 and 2035, and you have reduction targets, and you have net neutral targets of carbon. And then they come up with all these plans to store the carbon in the ground. What they're doing, though, in the meantime, is while they're saying they're working to reduce ESG, and we'll use Germany as an example, they've invested tremendously into carbon projects, carbon reduction projects like wind turbines, like solar energy, and the Energiewende, and their turning of their energy is based on these principles. But then last year, one of the biggest years of carbon emissions for Germany. Why is that? Well, they lost the Nord Stream 1 and 2. Somebody blew it up, and nobody's releasing who did it. There are several people or countries that would be key candidates for having done this, but nobody wants to say who it is. And everybody wants to defy logic and say it was this country, or it was Russia, and it couldn't possibly be anybody other than Russia. Well, then you wouldn't have had to make it secret to do your investigation. But during this time last year, Germany used more carbon and emitted more carbon than it had done before, because, of course, the methane and the emissions from this gas stream when it blew up was an environmental disaster. On top of that, Germany has shut down nuclear power plants. If you want to reduce carbon, nuclear power is one of the best ways to go, if not the best current way to go. Hydrogen, not effective yet, and it's not fully established. There's only one turbine in the world that's built that uses pure hydrogen. And the rest are quote unquote blue hydrogen or green hydrogen, or gray hydrogen. They're not pure hydrogen developed without using other sources. They're a mix. And the only one that works right now is over in Norway, and I think it's in Stavanger. And otherwise, in Japan, they're attempting, and in the US, they're attempting, but they're at 50% levels. They're not pure hydrogen. So if you wanted to reduce your carbon footprint, you would actually use nuclear. Germany has shut down its nuclear plants. They only have 3 currently. And last week, we saw Greta Thunberg down in Germany protesting coal mining, where they were going to take an entire town and they were going to strip mine it and develop the coal from it to power Germany. They were also going to use lignite to do this power. And lignite is one of the dirtiest, cheapest coals going. And it is really a bad product for the environment. Yet Germany was using this town to make coal. And they're also tearing down several different turbines. So they built these wind turbines to reduce the carbon, and now they're tearing them down to dig up the coal. This is a complete contradiction. And this is an example of how reality versus theory, they don't coincide. And that's like the market. If you want to make money in the market right now, you need to look at trading approaches, in my opinion, because the reality is the fundamentals are not good. All the tech companies are laying people off because they're looking at bad times. If you look at Twitter as a good example, or an archetypal example, they're having difficulties paying bills. There are rumors that it's going to go bankrupt. You've had the CEO or the major owner, and it's saying they're about to go bankrupt. Then you've had the major CEO or the CEO saying he needs a new CEO, but it's a very dangerous situation, and it could go bankrupt. And he would want the new CEO to invest in the company. So essentially tie an anchor around his neck and maybe throw it overboard and see if he sinks. The point is that the tech companies are suffering a lot right now. I'm not saying they're all going to go bankrupt, but they're firing people. And the size of the layoffs have been significant. Yet, over this month, they've gone up. And the ones that have laid off the most people are the ones that are showing some very strong performance. If you look at Apple, Apple hasn't laid anybody off, and yet it's gone up, but not as much as the other companies that are announcing layoffs. Schibsted today, Norwegian company, they're laying off people and they're going up on the day. Usually you're laying off people because you need to institute savings programs and you're going to be going through rough times, and yet the shares are going up. So it doesn't make sense with the valuation, and yet it goes up. So what we're seeing in the market right now, particularly in the Nordics, is reality, some fundamentals, and perception are not lining up. So if you think that the interest rates may go down in a year or two, people are buying the market. If you look at the inflation trend and you see that the inflation is not really declining to the level of 2%, you're buying the market. If you're looking at the market and you're saying, hey, inflation's up at 10%, I need to stay away, I need to short the market, well then, yeah, you've got a good case. But current levels are based purely on perception. So remember, you can always make money in the market, and it's a question of how you're looking at the market. If you're looking at it on a long-term basis, fundamentals just aren't there. If you're looking at it on a short-term basis, you can make your case for a trade. And so with that, would want to wish you a good day, and to continue looking at the market. And of course, hopefully you like this and you're subscribed. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much and have a great day.